Ethan stared at the message on his phone, disbelief sinking in. The man he called his closest friend had used his trust to climb higher, leaving him to take the fall. The betrayal wasn't just about business. It cut into something deeper. Faith in people. How can you ever really know who to trust? Is it in what they say, the promises they make, or something quieter, something that only reveals itself over time? Centuries ago, in the bustling agora of Athens, Socrates faced the same question. Surrounded by politicians, students, and self-proclaimed men of virtue, he didn't trust easily. He didn't look at titles, wealth, or eloquent speeches. He listened. He questioned. He observed the truth beneath the surface. "Before you believe their words," Socrates once said, "test their soul." Socrates never judged by charm. He measured the unseen. And through countless dialogues, he uncovered 3 simple questions that could expose anyone's true nature. 3 questions that reveal more about character than any oath, any promise ever could. To understand how he discovered them, we must go back to the day Athens tried to deceive its wisest man. Question 1. Do they seek truth or validation? The first question Socrates asked before trusting anyone wasn't about loyalty or honesty. It was about desire. What do they truly chase, he would say, truth or validation? In the crowded agora of Athens, Socrates once met a young orator named Callias, tall, confident, and adored by the crowd. He spoke with fire, quoting the poets and philosophers, words flowing like music. When he finished, the people clapped. Callias turned to Socrates with a proud smile. "Tell me," he asked, "was I as wise as they say?" Socrates looked at him quietly, then asked a single question. "Do you wish to be wise or to appear wise?" At first, Callias laughed. He said both, of course, he replied, deflecting. But Socrates didn't move, his gaze calm and unblinking. The young man fidgeted. He began explaining, justifying, proving. With every word, he revealed more, not of his intellect, but of his insecurity. And as he spoke, the applause faded in meaning. What was left was truth. Callias didn't love wisdom. He loved being seen as someone who did. Modern psychology gives us language for what Socrates intuited. Validation seeking activates the same dopamine reward circuits as addictive behaviors. When someone receives praise or approval, the brain lights up, a temporary high that masks deeper insecurity. This cycle can make a person dependent on others' opinions, shaping their behavior around being admired rather than being authentic. Worse, people who crave validation often become skilled at manipulating approval, saying the right things, mirroring emotions, appearing humble when needed. They seem trustworthy, until the moment their image is threatened. Then the mask slips. Socrates understood this thousands of years before psychology could map it on a scan. He knew that trust built on admiration alone is fragile, because admiration feeds ego, not character. Socrates' first question becomes a framework, a way to read people beyond appearances. Ask what drives them, curiosity or praise? Do they ask questions because they want to understand or because they want to appear intelligent? True seekers ask even when no one's listening. Notice their response to correction. Do they listen or defend? Someone chasing truth will welcome discomfort. Someone chasing validation will fight it. Their tone changes, their eyes hardened, the ego rises to protect the image. Trust begins here, not with charm, but with teachability. In every age, the loudest voices often hide the most fragile hearts. The need to look right can quietly destroy the capacity to be right. And the tragedy is, most people don't even know they're chasing applause. So before you trust someone's confidence, test their silence. Before you believe their eloquence, test their humility. Because truth doesn't need to shout, it listens first. Next time you meet someone impressive, pause before you decide to trust them. Ask yourself, are they curious or just convincing? But Socrates didn't stop there. The second question exposed something deeper, not about words, but about integrity when unseen.
Question 2. Do they live what they preach? Socrates didn't trust words, he trusted consistency. In the crowded marketplace of Athens, a merchant once approached Socrates with reverence. He spoke of ethics, of virtue, of the noble path taught by philosophy. He quoted Socrates' own words back to him, eager to show that he lived by wisdom. For a time, the city believed him. His shop was filled with customers who trusted his fairness, and his reputation grew as the honest trader. But one summer, when business faltered and the ships from Corinth were delayed, the merchant began to cheat, just a little at first. He mixed grain with sand, shorted scales, and smiled through every lie. When rumors reached Socrates, he didn't accuse him publicly. He visited quietly, asking only, "You speak of virtue, but does it live in your hands?" The merchant couldn't meet his eyes. His tongue stammered out excuses. Times are hard. Everyone bends the rules. Socrates nodded slowly. Then your words are not your soul. They are only clothing, easily changed when seasons turn. The merchant walked away, his pride crumbling faster than his fortune. Modern neuroscience has a name for what Socrates revealed: moral dissonance, the internal stress that erupts when our actions betray our beliefs. When people preach one thing and live another, the brain's limbic system fires conflict signals. Stress hormones rise, guilt simmers, and the mind begins to justify instead of reflect. That's why hypocrisy is often loud. The louder someone insists on their virtue, the more likely they're trying to drown out the noise of their own conscience. Integrity, by contrast, is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It aligns thought, speech, and behavior into a single rhythm, one that stays steady whether anyone is watching or not. If Socrates were here today, he might offer 3 reflections before trusting anyone, mentor, friend, or leader. 1. Do their choices align with their claims? When promises meet pressure, consistency reveals truth. 2. How do they treat the powerless? Character is clearest in moments without reward. Watch how they speak to waiters, assistants, or strangers. 3. What do they do when no one's watching? True virtue doesn't need an audience. Integrity isn't about being flawless. It's about being whole. A person who owns their mistakes is far more trustworthy than one who hides them behind polished words. Before trusting words, trust patterns. Actions whisper what mouths deny. And yet, Socrates' final question wasn't about others at all. It was about you. Question 3. Can they sit with truth, even when it hurts? The final test of trust is how someone handles discomfort. It happened on a quiet morning in Athens. The sun had just touched the marble columns when one of Socrates' closest students, a young man named Lysis, came to him visibly shaken. He had made an error in judgment during a public debate, twisting a fact to save face. Others noticed. Socrates said nothing at first. He listened. Then, with his calm voice, he asked a single question. If truth stood before you, would you turn away? Lysis tried to defend himself. It wasn't my fault. I was misunderstood. But the more he spoke, the more tangled his words became. Socrates only looked at him, patient and still, until the silence itself became insupportable. Finally, the young man broke. I was wrong, he whispered. I wanted to win more than I wanted to be honest. Socrates smiled gently. Then you have learned more than if you had won 100 debates. For truth, once faced, no longer condemns, it transforms. In that moment, the lesson was not about logic. It was about the courage to sit with discomfort. The moment every mask burns away and only humility remains. Modern psychology now confirms what Socrates intuited centuries ago. When confronted with truths that challenge our self-image, the brain enters a state called cognitive dissonance. It's a clash between belief and reality, a mental storm that triggers anxiety, defensiveness, or denial. Most people flee that feeling. They rewrite the story, blame someone else, or retreat into pride. But emotionally mature individuals do something rarer. They pause. They breathe through the tension, reflect, and let truth reshape them. This is emotional resilience, the ability to face painful feedback without collapsing or attacking. It's the cornerstone of personal growth, leadership, and lasting trust. Socrates would tell us that truth is not a weapon, it's a mirror, and only the brave can look into it. To see someone's true character, ask quietly within yourself. Can they admit fault without collapsing? The fragile ego defends. The strong one learns.
2. Do they grow from feedback or shut down? Growth is not in the praise we receive, but in the truths we can endure. 3. Can they face hard truths without blaming others? Responsibility is the purest form of strength. In every age, trust isn't built by perfection. It's built by courage. The courage to face truth, to admit when we're wrong, and to keep walking forward even when ego bleeds. This is what separates the wise from the merely intelligent, because intelligence seeks to win arguments, but wisdom seeks to understand reality, even when it hurts. Watch how people react when corrected. That's the moment their true self appears. And when you start asking these 3 questions, something profound changes within you, too. Trust doesn't begin with others. It begins with your ability to see clearly. The beauty of Socrates' wisdom is that it was never about judging others. It was about understanding ourselves. His 3 questions are not weapons to test people, but mirrors that reflect the kind of person we are becoming. Because when you no longer need validation to feel whole, when your actions quietly align with your words, when you can face truth even when it shakes you, you become the kind of soul even Socrates would have trusted. Back in the modern world, Ethan, the man who once felt shattered by betrayal, now walks through the same city streets, but differently. He remembers the pain, yet there's peace in his eyes. He no longer blames the one who deceived him. Instead, he's grateful for what that moment revealed. He's learned that trust isn't something we give, it's something we discern. And discernment comes not from suspicion, but from clarity. As he looks toward the sunrise, the noise of the city fades. In its place, quiet certainty. So before you let someone into your heart, your team, or your dream, ask these 3 questions, not to judge them, but to protect your peace.
Socrates once said, "Be slow to fall into friendship, but when you are in, continue firm and constant." Because real trust isn't blind, it's earned through truth.